Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Welcome into the Tech Ed Podcast. I am your host, Matt Kirkner. Great to have you with us again this week. If you're a regular audience member, you know that we talk to leaders who are shaping and disrupting technical education and technology. And these are leaders from all over the globe. And every single week, we're learning something new from somebody who has a really interesting story to tell. Well, this week, we're going to bring it a little closer to home. Many of you know that my hometown is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I can tell you that because our Tech Ed podcast studios are right here outside of Milwaukee, we bring a lot of people from outside Southeast Wisconsin to this region. And the one thing that we hear from every single one of them when they leave, they say, I had no idea. I had no idea of the amazing art and the culture and the professional sports and incredible neighborhoods that we call places like the East Side and River West and the Third Ward, the public market here in Milwaukee. So many great things to do, both on the lake and away from the lake. And they all say, I had no idea that Milwaukee had all of this to offer. The other thing that many people have no idea about is what a technology hub and a center for innovation Milwaukee has become, in no small part thanks to today's guest. So I am really, really happy to introduce to the audience of the Tech Ed Podcast, Kathy Henrich. Kathy is the CEO of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. Kathy, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what is the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition.
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit with the mission of inclusively growing the tech ecosystem in Southeast Wisconsin, both to drive economic growth and long-term prosperity, but also to create opportunities, life-changing opportunities for individuals. We don't do that alone. We do it in conjunction with a large a set of organizations, about 135 organizations collaborating with us to advance the mission here in the Southeast Wisconsin.
So you and I both know that when people think of Milwaukee, at least if they're outside of this region, they may not immediately think about technology. We know better. So tell us a little bit about how is the technology culture here in Wisconsin, in Southeast Wisconsin? What is the climate for technology and what makes us unique among other technology hubs?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Milwaukee's actually, tech is actually about 10% of our economy. It's bigger than many of the places that you might think, like Pittsburgh or Nashville, et cetera. We actually are almost double in size from those regions. However, one of the things that's very unique about us is a larger portion of our tech is actually embedded in traditional industries. And it is not just what we would have thought traditionally of SaaS companies, IT companies, but it's a lot of traditional industries that have been transformed through technology. And, you know, we have deep bench strength in areas like manufacturing, obviously, and highly engineered products, but also energy and water, especially power and controls. And then we also see a very big hub around biohealth as well. So those are some of the areas where we have industry concentration, and it's amazing the number of companies and employees that you have based in those industries.
It is an interesting point you make in that a lot of times when we think about technology, we think about software companies, we think about startups, and certainly we have that here in Milwaukee as well. But so much of what's driving the technology landscape are these, in some cases, 100-year-old, even more recognizable brands in all kinds of different spaces, particularly in manufacturing, which is the part of the Milwaukee economy that I grew up in and spent a lot of time in. But it's many of these companies that are more of the traditional names that are now innovating and finding ways to drive their organizations into the future using technology to do it. And so we do have an incredibly vibrant manufacturing economy. You mentioned power and control. I love the reference to water and being right here on Lake Michigan, and that being such an important part of our city's history and our economy. Bio as well, and the emerging technologies that are going on there. Because of this, by the way, Looking at your board of directors, I mean, you've got some of the most recognizable innovators in Southeast Wisconsin serving right on your board at the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. And I got to believe, Kathy, that that gives you kind of an interesting insight into some of the trends that are taking place in technology. Would you mind sharing a few of the things that you're hearing from your board members and elsewhere about where technology is going, not just here in Milwaukee, but across the country and around the globe?
So as we look at how we invest from a Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition perspective, we want to build on those traditional strengths. And in fact, we've been recently awarded pretty significant recognition in those areas. So EDA just recognized Milwaukee as a biohealth tech hub, and that designation provides us the opportunity to compete for some mega grants, $80 million from EDA. We also were recognized with a grant specifically around energy and water resiliency here in the region, and also one in the state around smarter agriculture. So when we look at one trend, right, is that I would say we see that this cluster development farming. So when you look at hubs that were larger than Nashville or some of these other places, a lot of times when you think about them, what happens is you think of them for a particular area. So Pittsburgh, you think about for robotics, Nashville, you might think of for health tech, et cetera. It's this virtuous cycle that is formed. It attracts more people, more research, et cetera, in this virtuous cycle. So one of the trends is that we're starting to see ourselves win in that space, and we're going to double down and invest in continuing to build those place-based, sector-specific areas. Another one that I would say is, from an industry perspective, the growth of some of these transformational technologies that are not just transforming IT, but are transforming all industries. With the prevalence of data coming from sensors, et cetera, there's one of the advantages that these historical industries have is they understand the problem set well. They now have the data that goes along with it, and they're starting to apply advanced technologies like AI, IoT, et cetera, to be able to create this mix of the physical and digital world that are going to solve new problems.
Fascinating. Yeah. It's just, I mean, you think about really those two trends that you mentioned in coalition with each other, right? This whole idea behind clusters, this whole coalescence in certain economic spaces where Milwaukee can really lead the entire region, if not the country, into totally new technologies. And then to that second point, and it's something that we talk a lot about here on the Tech Ed podcast, huge data sets, the ability to analyze that data. But I think you point out something really important, which is understanding the problem set first, right? And it's not just doing data acquisition and data analysis and predictive analytics for the sake of doing it, but what problem are we trying to solve? What is it in our business, in our organization, in our region that we are trying to improve using those huge data sets that we're deriving again from all of the smart sensors and smart devices that seem to be attached to just about everything these days. So really, really exciting time to be part of the Milwaukee tech culture and to be leading it in the way that you are. I think another thing that you're leading on in so many ways is this idea of talent. And I know in as much as one of your key tenets at the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition is to try and balance the demand for tech talent with the supply of tech talent. So very, very important. So tell our audience a bit, Kathy, about what is the climate for tech talent here in the city of Milwaukee and in the surrounding area?
Yeah, and I'm going to start it from a global perspective because the challenge that we're all facing is actually part of a global problem, which is there is not enough tech talent. So despite all the layoffs that have gone on in the tech industry over the last 6 months, especially, that has not slowed down the demand for tech talent or filled the gap that we have. So essentially, we continue to see a national tech talent shortage and actually a global tech talent shortage. We're at about 2% unemployment nationally. Tech occupations are up about 35% in the last 10 years, and we don't see that changing. And one of the problems is that we're adding about 100,000 new tech jobs nationally every year, and we're only graduating about 90,000 new college grads. And so even if you take a look at just that supply and demand, and then you take out the leaky bucket of retirements, et cetera, we're just not replenishing it at an adequate rate. And part of that is some of the trends we talked about earlier, which is every company is becoming a tech company. Traditional, industries like insurance, where it used to be 5% of their employees were tech, now it's up to 30%, right? It's a huge transformation, and we're seeing that demand continue. So that is one, I'd say, mega trend. The second one, though, because of that, we have to see our approach to filling that talent gap change. That means taking in non-traditional employees, giving them new pathways into tech. It doesn't necessarily require a 4-year degree. Apprenticeships are growing. Other kinds of non-traditional skilling are growing. And moving to a skills-based economy is definitely growing. It also not only helps us with filling the capacity requirement, but it also is the fastest path to increasing the diversity of that tech talent pool as well. And then the last one I will mention is the growth in remote. So Wisconsin, it happens to be a benefactor of that. We have seen our tech talent grow 5% every year, with people moving into the state and bringing their jobs with us. And so, we're a benefactor of this remote work trend that I think we'll continue to see grow.
Really great observations. You think about, creating 100,000 new tech jobs every year and only graduating 90,000 people for those jobs on an annual basis. Again, not even considering the challenges related to attrition and retirement and so on. And then your second observation is really in part a solution to the first one, which is if we're falling short in terms of college graduates, where can we find other technical talent, whether it's coming from a community or technical college, whether it's coming direct out of high school, whether it's porting somebody over from another industry into tech, and just the drive toward diversity that results from that. If we have, greater on ramps and off ramps, and particularly on ramps into technology, really, really important. So I think as we think about the future of technology talent here in the city of Milwaukee, whether that is talent that is working remotely, whether it's somebody that is coming to, again, what I just believe is one of the best places in the world to live and do business. And now I can live in an amazing neighborhood like the Third Ward or downtown Wisconsin, downtown Milwaukee rather, or one of the great suburbs, and work for companies all over the country. And I have people in my own life that are doing exactly that and taking advantage of the opportunities that are brought by remote work. It's really, really interesting to watch how all this is going to come together as we get more and more people excited about careers in tech. I know a huge part of that, as do you, is getting young people not just excited about careers in technology, but also giving them the skills they need to go on, whether they're going direct to workforce after high school, whether they're moving on into other endeavors with education or military service thereafter. That's going to be really, really important, how we focus on K-12. Of course, here in the city of Milwaukee, we have our own challenges and around surrounding areas with education. That's not unique to our city. I think a lot of urban areas face some of those things. But tell us about your view, Kathy, of the state of K-12 education here in the city and the surrounding areas, and what we need to do to get more and more young people excited about careers in tech.
I would say one of the areas that we try to do is a give back right into the community to understand or expose students to tech. So we have a program called Hour of Tech that goes through Computer Science Week. Last year, we had about 33,000 hours donated into the community to expose students into technical careers. However, that is only one part of it. There's a lot of, I'll call it, programs that students can take advantage of, which is fantastic. But really, we need that to be integrated holistically into the approach that we teach. And, there's always this debate right now about, do you use AI in the classroom? Do you not use AI in the classroom? I happen to be a proponent of using it, right, to help in students exploring topics and learning and showing their work of how they got to various answers. I think there's a lot of opportunity that we have going forward in the future to be able to leverage these technologies to provide personalized kinds of mentorship and personalized instruction beyond what we can do in a classroom setting to get us to the point where tech is embedded every day into the K through 12 system.
As you know, I spend a lot of time in the world of education, Kathy, and one of the things that we talk about, you and I are 100% aligned, by the way, in terms of AI in the classroom. A lot of education institutions are now trying to figure out how they, prevent students from using ChatGPT as just one example to create content. And we're looking at how do you require it? I mean, it's going to be part of the future. The analogy we use is why didn't we teach people to read in the 14th century? And the answer is we didn't have books, and so there wasn't any reason for people to necessarily know how to read. Why didn't we teach and use AI in 2010? Well, we didn't have it, at least not at our fingertips in the way that we do now, but now we do. And for any educator that feels like there's a question around whether or not we can police the use of artificial intelligence in education, just spend 2 or 3 minutes on TikTok and look at all of the crazy ways that young people have come up with to take content out of ChatGPT, again, is just one example, and turn it into their own voice in ways that teachers would never know. So we're never going to get past policing artificial intelligence in the classroom. What we have to do is figure out how to embrace it, how to use it, how to get young people excited about it, how to show them that we can use it ethically, we can use it responsibly, and we can reduce the time it takes to do things and actually create a lot more enjoyment in our lives as a result of using AI. So you and I, by the way, are incredibly aligned on that particular topic. I know the other thing that we're really aligned on is trying to recruit great talent to the city of Milwaukee, whether it's in the businesses that I'm involved in, whether it's the great work that the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition is up to. I don't want you to give away any super dark secret, but I would love to hear some of your secrets around how are you attracting tech talent to the city of Milwaukee and Southeast Wisconsin? What's important to people working in technologies, and what can our local companies and employers learn about how we can attract that great talent?
Yeah, so one of the things that's interesting, we did some research specifically in this topic. And what's interesting is people understand, especially if they've had any kind of historical connection to Wisconsin, just how great of a place it is, right? To live and be able to do the things you want to do. The hesitancy typically comes in the area of, can I have a great career there, right? So things that we need to convince talent of is you can have a great career here. There's opportunities, lots of opportunities, both laterally as well as vertically. And, the second thing they really care about is to work on problems that matter, right? Here we have such great opportunities to be a light to the world, to solve problems that matter to the world. In the area of energy, water, biohealth, et cetera, that I mentioned earlier, we are truly solving problems that matter to the world. The third area is they want to know they're going to be working on advanced technologies, right? They want to make sure that, their career is going to be cutting edge, et cetera. And they want to do that in a way that's in a diverse setting that values every person. That is the messaging that we help our employers with, to think about how do they tell their stories in a different way than doing a job posting that just says, here's your responsibilities, but how are you going to contribute? What kinds of technologies are you going to learn? How are you going to work together? And where could your career go here? And when you do that, we have this great opportunity to continue to bring people back so that they can enjoy the quality of life that they want to here in the region.
I love the focus that you put out there, Kathy, with that last answer. When we think about, number one, where do I want to live? Where do I want to spend time? I began this discussion by saying that when people come and visit Milwaukee, they leave saying, I had no idea. I had no idea the quality of life there, the incredible opportunities to do pretty much anything that you're interested in or across the entire spectrum of different things, whether it's sporting, whether it's spending time outdoors, whether it's going, enjoying the arts, whether it's enjoying entertainment. I mean, all of these different opportunities that we have right here in the city of Milwaukee. Why would people want to come? That's such an important question. I think we have a great answer for that particular question. Doing meaningful work, and especially as we look at millennials and Gen Z, that is really, really important. So many times it's not necessarily about the money. It's about wanting to know that they're making a difference. And then the third idea is working around emerging technologies. And I think if you take those three pillars and focus on why do you want to be here? How are you going to solve important problems? And what are you going to learn around technology? Why wouldn't somebody respond to that type of a value proposition for what they want to do for the next period of their life? And again, thanks to the great work you're doing in communicating that, we're making all kinds of progress here in Milwaukee and in Southeast Wisconsin. The other thing we're making incredible progress on is this whole idea, as we discussed a moment ago, of artificial intelligence. I do a lot of speaking on this topic. I know you do. Every couple of years, I like to pick a topic and then just kind of focus on it for a few years. 5 or 6 years ago, it was Industry 4.0, and you could ride those speeches out for 4 or 5 years. And anymore in this world of artificial intelligence, you come up with content, and 6 months later, it's all obsolete, and you're starting brand new because everything is moving so quickly. So I don't think it's necessarily unreasonable for us to focus on a period of time as short as 12 to 24 months, literally in the next year to 2 years. How do you think artificial intelligence is going to change the platform around and the culture around working here in the city of Milwaukee? What are you hearing from our employers?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So just so happens 2 weeks ago, we had the author of All In on AI, How Smart Companies Win Big with Artificial Intelligence. He came to Milwaukee and talked to our companies here in the region. And, where we are right now is there is a lot of experimentation. There's the first use cases being put in place, gaining early value, et cetera, from those. And then, of course, you have the outliers that are all in already. And I think we have a couple of those companies here as well, similar to the rest of the country. But in all places where we're at is, you're doing the experimentation, you're starting to get the value cases. But as you scale, and this is where I think it's really important, it's really about how do I create the processes, the leadership, the talent, et cetera, that are going to make this an ongoing governance that continues to enhance value over time. And I think that's one of the places that as you talk to the more mature organizations, so as you look out 12 to 24 months, they are putting in place those processes, the policies, but also the ongoing governance that looks at the models, continues to tweak the models, make sure it's ethical, et cetera. That's going to be one area that we're going to see continue to scale.
The data that we get and the information that we get from AI is only as good as the data that we put into it. And so we've certainly seen all kinds of examples of, depending on which data sets are being used, we can have all kinds of interesting outcomes, not all of them good. So I think, the focus on policies, focus on governance, as well as the focus on advancements and procedures and process. It's going to be really interesting to watch all of that roll out in the city of Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin, in the Midwest, and really around the globe in the coming 12 to 24 months. Love to hear your perspectives, Kathy. I mean, you've got such a unique opportunity to see specific use cases, specific organizations that are really leading in artificial intelligence. And in as much as you have so many of these great companies as members, as board members that you're engaging with, are there any that you'd like to point out specifically that are doing really interesting things in artificial intelligence?
So, if you look at any of the larger organizations, they've been early adopters, right? Whether that's financial services and insurance, and being able to provide to make their internal processes more efficient, to be able to more easily approve potential policyholders, make it easier for them, et cetera. Another one would be, we're seeing it in products. I was with Milwaukee Tool. They talked about this last week, where they're starting to put AI embedded into their technology, right, to increase battery lives, those kinds of things. GE Healthcare talked at a member meeting of ours back in first quarter as well, related to how that's integrated into all of their, their imaging machinery, et cetera. So what you're seeing is AI embedded in products, processes, and enhancing customer service and gaining better insights in order to advance these companies.
And I think that's a great example of the use case of AI, especially to small and mid-sized businesses. We'll get into that in a minute, but it's not so much that we have to come up with our own team of a dozen data scientists and have these people working on gathering these gigantic data sets for our companies. And a lot of these use cases are smaller. They may be more about, what technology am I bringing into my business that already has AI embedded into it? How can I gather data from that technology? I think about even the rich history of manufacturing that we have here in the city of Milwaukee and surrounding areas, whether I've got a machine tool or a robot that is loaded up with all kinds of smart sensors and devices that can gather incredible amounts of data. That's embedded already on the technology that we're bringing in. And for that matter, the software that can be used to analyze the information that's being thrown off by those particular pieces of equipment, that's already created as well. It's just a question of how we adopt them into our organization. That's one way I think that small to mid-sized companies can benefit from this huge wave of artificial intelligence, machine learning, data sets, predictive analytics. As you look at those small to mid-sized businesses that maybe don't have the resources of a GE Healthcare, of a Milwaukee Tool, in terms of being able to invest significant amounts of capital in these endeavors, what advice do you have for your members who are maybe those $20 to $50 million companies that want to do something here, but don't necessarily have the wherewithal to invest, millions, if not $1 billion in that kind of an effort?
Yeah, I think in many cases we have to think about that as being what might be referred to as citizen AI, right? It is taking individuals that already understand your products, your processes, et cetera, and giving them the tools to be able to integrate this in through democratized capabilities. So one of the things that I would say first and foremost is focus on the talent. Making sure you have individuals in your organization that have gotten formal training in it, but are also have opportunities to experiment with the technologies in order to look for those use cases that enable you to be successful. The second is really working with some of your existing tool providers to understand where they're going with AI. So rather than thinking of having to build your own algorithms, right, that you're looking at how do I even leverage my CRM, or how do I leverage other tool sets that I may already have, my ERP, et cetera, and be able to implement those AI technologies. And then the third is, where is my differentiation going to be in the future? And then that's where I want to double down into being able to have my own capabilities. But most things for a medium-sized businesses are going to be integrated into your existing tool set.
It's going to be really interesting to watch all of that technology and all those advancements roll out among our small to mid-sized businesses here in Wisconsin and across the United States. It's going to be a really, really interesting time here the next, I'm going to say, 2 to 10 years. Really, really exciting time to be in business. We think about the points that you just made. Number one, the focus on talent. It all starts with talent. I think every employer knows that you're only as good as the team of people that you have around you. So making sure that we have talent that understands how AI, how machine learning is going to disrupt our business model, really, really important. Working with our partners, whether it's a machine tool provider, it's an equipment provider, and so on, and benefiting from that. And then looking at those tools we already have. I think about, in your example of a CRM is just a phenomenal one. Most companies that have been using CRMs, customer relationship management software, of course, for a number of years, recognize that they have tremendous amounts of data about their customers order history, what's being quoted to those customers, the customer activity, and then some of these tools that can almost be a little bit crazy in terms of being able to track activity on websites and in social media, and really creating a persona around that individual that we're engaging with and predicting what their behavior is going to be, and then using that data to make our businesses even more efficient, even more productive. That's where the future of this is going, especially for small to mid-sized companies. You and I agree 100%. It is going to take an effort around K-12, and it's going to take an effort around higher education. And I know that we've got some great examples here in Southeast Wisconsin of colleges and universities that are really doing some interesting things to prepare that next generation of workforce for these incredible opportunities in technology. So reflect a little bit, Kathy, on the state of higher ed and some interesting things happening here in Milwaukee around that group of individuals.
Yeah, we are really fortunate. First of all, we have the 6th highest concentration of students per capita here in Southeast Wisconsin. So, we have huge opportunities in front of us. And we're seeing long-term investments that have already been made come to fruition and really have some, opportunities. Northwestern Mutual's Data Science Institute, a collaboration between Northwestern Mutual, Marquette, and UW Milwaukee, has been in place for 5 years, right? Building out both the capabilities on AI and their professors, but also the research capabilities, et cetera. That is well poised. MSOE was our very first undergraduate program on AI across the country. They have continued to enhance that with post-bachelor kinds of programs, certificates, et cetera. They have a supercomputer on site for their students to be able to implement AI, test algorithms, et cetera. Huge opportunity. And now we're seeing in the technical colleges, they have also been able to implement AI capabilities. So they have now certificate programs. Waukesha County Technical College just announced an associate's degree in AI, and making those complementary so that you can get your associates and then go on for your bachelor's and then continue your education into master's, et cetera. We have an amazing set of resources in this space that we're going to continue to enhance going forward.
I think you're exactly right. As a Marquette grad myself, I've been particularly interested in the Data Science Institute and the collaboration between Marquette University, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and Northwestern Mutual. That's been a fascinating project to work on. I was at the grand opening of that data science program at MSOE, and then Rosie, the supercomputer, and the amazing computing capacity that they have right there at the Milwaukee School of Engineering. Great example. Dr. Rich Barnhouse, who's the president of Waukesha County Technical College, himself a former guest on the Tech Ed podcast. I had the pleasure of serving actually on his advisory board for that AI program. So literally an associate's degree and certificates around artificial intelligence and applied AI, which I think is just absolutely spot on with where they're going. I would also point to some of the great work that David Aguirre is doing at Gateway Technical College and in the southern part of Southeast Wisconsin, and the programs that he's got there. I know MATC, I was just with the President Vicki Martin a couple of weeks ago. They're looking at artificial intelligence and how it should be transforming higher education, particularly community colleges and technical colleges. And then finally, a brand new executive director at the Connected Systems Institute at UWM. And I have the honor of serving on that advisory board as well. So many great things happening here in Southeast Wisconsin. I did not realize, by the way, that we had did you say the highest per capita concentration of higher education students, or sixth highest in the country?
Sixth
highest in the country.
Yep.
Yeah, that's saying something, right? And it's really saying something for the future of technologists and the future of the amazing talent that we'll be creating here in Southeast Wisconsin as your organization and others, particularly the incredible work you're doing, Kathy, in this space, continue to drive our technology forward. We're getting close to the end of our time today with Kathy Henrich. Kathy is the CEO of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. I did want to squeeze one last question in, though, for you, Kathy. And this is a question our audience knows we love asking the guests here on the Tech Ed podcast. I want you to go back in time. I want you to go back in time to that moment when you were 15 years old, you're in high school, your entire life is ahead of you. And if you had the opportunity to go back and give that young Kathy one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
I know what this would be, and that would be to continue to invest my time in math and science. So I happen to be one of those people that thought I would never use it again. And I convinced my high school guidance counselor that a 4.0 student didn't need even math or science in my senior year. I went on to test out in college and somehow managed to pass the entrance test for IBM. But as I look at where the world is going, it is technical, right? And it's going to continue to grow in its technical capability. Having that base technical capabilities, I often wish I could do that. But I think more important than that funny story is just the desire for that none of us gets ahead alone. All of us are doing that as part of teams and collaborations, and that as much as math and science matters, so do the relationships you build, and that is actually going to be equally important to your long-term success.
I agree with you. More relationships that we build over time, so very important, whether it's relationships with an academic advisor and convincing that individual you didn't need math and science your senior year. It's probably why you're such a great spokesperson on behalf of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition, and why you've created such a great group of companies and individuals that are doing incredible things here in Southeast Wisconsin. So credit to you for that. And obviously those sales skills that worked in high school are still working today. And none of that happens without relationships, as you suggest. And so building strong relationships really at the core of success of any organization and of any individual. We're really proud here at the Tech Ed podcast to have a relationship with the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition, to have a relationship with you, Kathy Henrich, CEO of that organization. Can't thank you enough for spending some time with us today on the Tech Ed podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you liked this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.